and Post, the Washington Post deal with OpenAI. It looks like it's primarily for ChatGPT search, so it's their search function, which I thought was interesting. And then some of these other things I think we'll talk about. They join 20 different news publishers, so 160 different outlets. I'm not sure. Have we gotten? I'm pretty sure we have some of these, but some of the partners where we probably have obtained links for our customers include News Corp, the Associated Press, Axel Springer, the Atlantic, Dot Dash, Meredith,
Yeah.
Financial Times.
Yeah, some of those are like pretty much every major media publication, and a lot of the lifestyle publications are kind of encompassed in a lot of those larger media groups. So yeah, it's really cool to see. Washington Post was one of my first ever large pieces of coverage that I secured. So special place in my heart.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Growing up in the DC area, that was the morning paper for me. So interesting to see how it evolves now coming over to ChatGPT and all of the 800 plus million users now.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm just going to interrupt you too. I see people filing in. So thank you everyone for letting us know where you are zooming in from. We'd love to know where you're joining from, like I mentioned, and what you're curious about learning in this webinar. Looks like we've got Minneapolis, Louisiana, Texas, Philly, Austin, Miami.
all over. It's exciting.
Amazing. New York, Canada, Kansas, Poland.
Love it. It's late there, Poland. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours later, 8 p.m. Um, I'm Kimberly Anderson. I'm the Director of Content here at Agital, and today's session is packed with insights to help your brand show up where it matters most in AI-driven results like Google's AI overviews and ChatGPT responses. We'll explore what answer engine optimization really means, how digital PR affects visibility, and the exact signals AI uses to decide which content and brands get featured. So we would love for you all to be heavily engaged and participate during our webinar. Please ask us questions. You can drop questions in the Q&A. If they're in the chat, they might get missed, although I'll be monitoring. So yeah, let's take it away. So let me introduce our speakers. And yes, you will be getting a replay link and a link to slides in a series of emails after. You're welcome, Patricia. Okay, so we have Kalina McKay. She's the SVP of Owned Media at Go Fish, an Agital company. Kalina oversees digital PR, content, and design. She's behind some of the most buzzworthy campaigns in the industry, earning coverage in the Washington Post, Forbes, Cosmo, Business Insider, and many other publications. We also have the amazing Dan Hinckley, co-founder at Go Fish. With nearly 2 decades in SEO, Dan leads AI strategy, technical SEO, and product development for some of the most recognizable brands, including Geico, the New York Times, Marriott, and Airbnb. He's our go-to for scaling organic performance through smart, structured execution. So before we get started, I'd love to jump into a poll. Where's your team currently investing in AI-driven search? So the poll has launched. I'll leave it up for about a minute. Please let us know. And Dan and Kalina, where do you typically see people investing in AI-driven search, if at all?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest of people trying to understand and how to do so. And it's a combination of creating content, trying to understand just the different algorithms and what they're doing. And then, Kalina, I'm sure you have some different ideas as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a little bit in digital PR, but I agree that I think everybody's trying to figure out what it means to invest in AI-driven search and where it makes the most sense to be doing it.
Awesome. Just a little bit longer for the poll. It looks like we're trending up with we're curious, we're experimenting, followed by we haven't started yet, or we're optimizing. We have a lot of participants today, so I'll just allow you a few more seconds to get your votes in.
We're pretty excited to kind of share the results of the work that we've done and what we found. So excited to talk about each of these different areas and the phases we've gotten through.
Great. So for those of you that haven't started yet, as Dan mentioned, there's going to be a ton of information. And those of you that are curious or experimenting, we can help refine your strategy. And those of you that are optimizing, we'd love to hear from you as well. So let's move forward.
Cool. So just to kind of set the stage a little bit, obviously, it's no secret that the search landscape is changing. It has changed dramatically in the past years, months, weeks, even. AI is literally everywhere, from overviews like you see in this screenshot to LLMs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, so many different avenues where we're seeing AI pop up in the search landscape. Which means that the way users seek and gather information, whether going directly to ChatGPT or getting all of the information out of the overviews and then not scrolling any further, is also changing dramatically. So with all of these new innovations, we've seen major changes in visibility and in turns how brands are approaching their SEO strategy to kind of accommodate all of these new innovations. So some data on AI overviews. This is based on the number of SERPs containing an AI overview in the US, according to Ahrefs. You can see that there is a massive skyrocket over the past few months. It's doubled in about the past 6 weeks. So despite dips back in the fall, AI overviews are clearly here and they're clearly growing. And then on the ChatGPT side, similar story, adoption and usage has also grown really dramatically. In November of 2023, which was about a year after its launch, it had 100 million users. Today, it's already up to 800 million. So SEO has changed and AI now dictates visibility. We saw the growth of AI overviews, but if you break that down further by keyword intent, you can find that 99% of informational keywords have an AI overview and another 20% of navigational keywords. So this, of course, also impacts click-through rates, like I mentioned about people not scrolling. We're seeing drops of about 35% on average for top ranking pages. So ranking well alone is not enough anymore to increase visibility. Same thing on the ChatGPT side. Some sites we're seeing thousands of monthly visitors straight from ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a new source of traffic and visibility, which can ultimately lead to conversions and revenue down the road. So while there's a lot of opportunity with AI-driven search, there's also a lot of risks if you're ignoring it. If you're not implementing strategies to get ahead in AI search, you're kind of already behind. Your competitors are probably doing it, and that's giving them a huge advantage. On top of that, you're going to leave a lot on the table if you're not prioritizing AI. Just ranking at the top of the SERPs, like I said, is only going to get you so far now. So we're going to talk about some strategies and things that we've seen work for increasing AI visibility. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Lena. That's, I think, a great foundational, reference for what's happening in search, and kind of we're excited to share tactics that we've been leveraging and seeing work that have an impact on increasing your visibility in AI overviews in ChatGPT. So we're going to go through and talk through those the rest of this webinar. We're going to talk about what I call kind of SEO plus, answer engine optimization, AI optimization. A lot of it still falls down to the fundamentals of SEO, and we're going to talk through some of those differences and what you need to do in addition to kind of the traditional SEO work that you may have done in the past. We're going to talk about digital PR and link building, and then we're going to talk about why traditional PR matters now and potentially more than it ever has in the past. So we're going to go through each of those today. So first off, we're going to focus on those answer engine optimization. So what is this answer engine optimization? It's very similar, as I referenced previously, to traditional SEO. The difference would be is that it's focusing efforts to try and increase your visibility in Google's AI overviews, in ChatGPT and other AI platforms. For this conversation and webinar today, we're going to talk primarily about Google's AI overviews and ChatGPT, as they're the market share leaders. A lot of the same principles and tactics that we're discussing here will help influence all language models as a foundation, but these are the ones that we're going to show examples from and talk through specific tactics and efforts that we've done. So it's really prioritizing efforts to make sure that your content, your brand, your products are appearing in the AI overviews and ChatGPT search results that are being recommended to users as they're engaging with content. So one thing we wanted to start off is talk about how AI selects sources for ChatGPT and AI overviews. And we wanted to note that it is a different process than traditional search engines. And so it does use some of the same foundations, and it still uses search engines at its core. There are a few different things that are important to understand. And one of those is that they retrieve information through a process often similar to what people that are developing apps for AI, which is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. This process is this kind of a way of finding specific elements of text inside of the content on a particular website that answers a problem or a query or matches best to it. And we're going to talk about how these tools go about doing it and how we've built tools to leverage that type of thing. But it's a slightly different process than what you might see from traditional search. And often that pages that are returned as part of search engines may not be part of the AI overviews, and we're going to go into some of those details as well. So optimizing for Google AI overviews, there's a number of things that we found, and we wanted to kind of walk you through the use cases and steps and show you an example of what we found as an opportunity to improve Google's AI overview exposure and how often you're included in those type of results. So when we're thinking about that, it's often important to understand that some content gets included and others doesn't, and it doesn't always make sense. And people will often note like, hey, we see that there's content that's on the first page of results that's not being included in AI overviews, recommended sources. Why is that happening? And that really falls back to what we talked about previously. Google has specific patents that they've published that talks about AI overviews and the process for retrieving information. And they've got thousands of patents related to their search engine, and the process is similar but different. And AI overviews is looking for the specific text on any particular page that's going to provide the best answer for a customer, where search engines are often looking for the page that may have the best experience. There's kind of somewhat different goals in those results. And as such, the AI overviews results may not match what's inside of a Google search result. You could have a very specific answer to a prompt or a question on a page, but not rank on the first page of results. And so you can show up in AI overviews. And just because you're on the first page of results does not mean that you are going to have the best answer for a customer or for an AI engine that's trying to provide answers for customers and for searchers. So that's one key thing to think about is that they are different products and they're searching and looking at information differently. And they have slightly different goals. One's provide the best answer, one provide the best page experience. And as a result, you're going to get a different result in what's included and what is not. So one of the things to kind of get started, and we're going to walk you through a process that we often would do to help us optimize or improve our exposure and relevance and brand awareness inside of AI overviews. And so the first thing to do is really check to see where you're missing from AI overviews or where the opportunities exist. There's really kind of two ways to do it. One's the slow manual way, where you kind of think this is a target query that's important for me. I'm going to search for the search to perform a specific search, look at what AI overviews is generating, click through the sources to see if we're included or not. And that's a perfectly good way and partially a way something that we'll need to do to understand those results in the next step. But you can also kind of get a head start in just seeing generally where AI overviews are showing for keywords that drive impressions and traffic to your business or your organization. And that's through tools like Ahrefs, and there's some others out there. They have a great feature inside of their keywords report where you can go and set the SERP features and select AI overviews, and then it will return a list for you of all of the queries that your brand may be receiving impressions for, your website may be receiving impressions for, and it'll help you understand if you are included as a source in the AI overviews or if you're not, and that can give you some opportunities. So Ahrefs is a tool that you can look at, ahrefs.com, and they provide some great resources to help look at bulk information of where opportunities exist for you. They do have some free versions, but there's other paid versions, and different aspects of their tools are available for different pay points. So after we've identified and I know kind of where AI overviews exist, there's 3 steps that we generally look for to try and improve our exposure inside of Google's AI overviews. First, identifying what content or where we're missing, where we aren't included as a source, or where if we are included, we aren't necessarily referenced as much. And then the other side of it is updating that content to directly match those missing topics and filling those content gaps. And then also, and we're going to talk about this in more detail, ensuring those updates are semantically related and scoring well to the particular user query. And then after we've done that, align our content structure with AI preferred content format. So what's easy for them to process and understand, and score your content to be sure that it's providing the answers that people are looking for and that it needs to generate responses. So we're going to go through a demo and an example of kind of this process. So the first step would be is we've identified a query. In this example, it's dental digital marketing. We're going to show for Go Fish. So one of the first things we would do is we would click this, enter in this into Google search results. We would see the AI generated content. We would identify if we were included in a source. In this screenshot, you can see that there's little links next to each of the paragraphs. If you click those, that content window on the right will change to show you which sites it sourced that information from. So how did AI overviews understand what was important and valuable to them? So one of the things is you can see where it's generating and receiving the content information it needs, and we can then build a strategy of what we want to do from that. So one thing is you can see, hey, I'm included for this paragraph, but I'm missing from these. So there must be something related to our content that is a reason why Google wouldn't source us as a reference for those particular answers that it generated in AI overviews. Or if you're not included at all, you can take a look at that content versus your own content and start to build strategies of how do I better align with what Google thinks customers want as an answer for this particular query. The next thing is where we want to make sure that we improve our content and our score and that semantic relevance. So I'm going to talk a little bit at first about semantic relevance, and then I'll switch over to content structuring. So semantic relevance is essentially a process that Google and search engines that they originally created with BERT and then have leveraged through their transformer models, and OpenAI and others leverage it as well, where they take text, and in the simplest form, they take that text, they convert it to a number. It's a 768 dimensional array for Google for their search aspect. And that number becomes a representation of the meaning of that text. And so what happens is that when anyone enters in a particular query or a prompt into a search engine or a language model, that model will take that prompt or that search query, and they'll also convert it into a number that represents the meaning of that prompt. And so once you have two numbers, then you can, leverage math against it. And basically the math that they're doing with these numbers is saying what pieces of content is the most similar to the prompt, and what's providing essentially it's what sections of content is providing an answer to the prompt based on mathematical scoring of content. So when we started building tools with AI and language models, we identified that this is a process that highly correlated to the way that AI overviews, ChatGPT was finding content on pages and then extracting that information and returning it. And so we built some internal tools. This is an extension that we leverage called the Page Similarity by Agital. It helps us do this for our customers. We're able to look at their content, score it, and measure on a 10-point scale whether it's similar or not. In the screenshot above, you can also see we heat map that content to allow us to quickly identify what content on the page would be a good match and what would not be a good match. In this particular example, we had dental digital marketing. We noticed when we were going through that process that we weren't being included for social media marketing references. And when we looked at our content, we found that that content was missing. So we drafted new content, we included it on the page, we used our page similarity score to test to make sure that the new content we added was semantically relevant to social media marketing for dentists. And then that helped us be confident that the changes we made are going to align with Google's AI overviews for a particular topic or query. The other thing that we wanted to talk about in reference is that one thing that's important is the structure of the content on your page. So you can see in this example also that we leverage headers, short paragraphs, and lists. Long paragraphs can make it difficult for language models to pick out the most important points. Lists make it really easy for them to understand and regurgitate, and you can see a lot of their answers are just lists of information because they've been trained on list models in other areas. And so if you have really large chunks of text on your site, that's going to make it less likely for you to be able to be included. So short, specific paragraphs or lists that provide value and marking up your content with appropriate header structures while also making sure that they're semantically aligned can be a big benefit.
Dan, there's an important question in the chat, and I think we should speak to this about keeping a human in the loop when it comes to using AI and why that's so valuable. So Mary asked, do you lose out on resonance and emotion in answers though? Or when we're using any of our AI tools, could you speak to that?
Yeah, so most all the content and text that we generate is human generated. We use the tools to help us make sure that we're aligning with the correct ways, the correct answers. And the reality is that we're trying to provide solutions and answers. And sometimes, people want that fast and quick. They may not necessarily want to read through large, in-depth, detailed organizations or articles about a particular topic. And so there is a balance, right? We want it to be human. We want to provide interesting value, but we also want to make sure that we're aligning with what these tools are if we're hoping to be included in them. Google, I think, includes these sources as that reference is like, hey, I want to find out even more than just a single paragraph. And so they can jump into your content and you can provide significantly more detail. You just need to make sure that at least some of the content is aligning semantically and with the structure that AI needs to be able to provide a response.
Thank you.
So one of the questions we often get is like, well, how long does it take? How quickly can I get included in AI overviews, or what's going to happen? The good news is that it can happen in just a few hours. So in the example that we are sharing previously is we found that we weren't included. You can see at the top for social media marketing as a source for a particular query. We then went into the content, made the additions, made sure it was aligned semantically, sent the request to Google that we had changed the content specifically, and then published it to the web, asked Google to crawl that page again. 3 hours later, they had done so. And for the same query, we then were being included as a source for social media marketing. Essentially, as we were increasing our brand exposure by adjustments and the edits that we were making to the clicks and queries. Since making that test, I went back this morning and was just checking to see, did that impact impressions? Impressions went up 70% for this particular query, and clicks went essentially doubled in about a week over week timeframe. So we increased where we're showing up in Google AI overviews. We started showing up for even more Google queries as a result, more AI overviews as a source, and traffic and impressions followed as well. So one of the questions we often get was like, that's great, but it takes a really long time. I've got tons of content on my site. How can I scale this? So an additional tool that we've built inside of Go Fish, which is Barracuda, helps us do this at scale. We look at a wide range of search queries that you provide us. We pull in information, scan, and compare that against AI overviews. We then have tools that look at your content and the content in AI overviews and identify does your content provide an answer that is similar to AI overviews or not? So it can help identify those content gaps and identify what's a priority that needed to be able to change and make improvements to your content. So it's great for pulling in AI generated content, comparing that against the text on your website, identifying gaps, and then providing recommendations and opportunities for where to improve the content on your site to improve your AI overview exposure. Another question we get is, can we use the semantic similarity measurement of an entire site instead of a single page? And the answer is yes. So we've developed a process internally that we take every single page on your site and measure and create a vector embedding that represents the meaning of that page. And then from that, we can do some interesting and cool stuff. So on the next slide, you'll see kind of what we call as our semantic content audit. So in this process, after we've taken and created a number that represents the meaning of every page on your site, we're able to visualize and plot that and measure that against the other content on your site. With this technology, we're able to replicate scoring of your site similar to what Google uses. We know from their content warehouse database leak that they have a site focus score and a site radius score that uses embeddings that represent the meaning of the pages in the site to understand and establish the topical authority or the topical focus of a particular website. And then we can make details and decisions from that. So some of the things it helps us do is it helps us calculate that site center. What is the entire site most relevant to or most about? In addition to that, it helps us identify outlier content that is not related to the rest of the content on your site. What we found is like websites sometimes are decades old and they've gone through lots of different content or expert teams, and there's lots of content that may be about previous business goals or about previous topics that they've never decided to do anything with. And their content goals have shifted in focus, but the entirety of the site is still a representation of what the product or business is about. And we've had organizations where we've done this semantic content audit for, and we found that they had significant portions of content that is no longer aligned with their business goal. So we went through and we provided recommendations on if we wanted to align your site center or the focus of your site with what your business and product offering generates its most revenue for, we should remove sections of content or move it to another website. And they went through that process, and we removed about 40% of their website, 4,000 pages. And as a result, their site center shifted back to be more aligned with their core product offering, and their site traffic increased. So we removed 40% of their site. Their organic traffic increased about 40% as a result as well. So our semantic content audits is a great tool to help you see how your content is related to each other, what clusters exist on the content, and does your overall strategy really align with what it is that you're hoping to do and hoping to accomplish over the long run? Or do you need to make different strategic content about where to create new content or what content to potentially remove? This tool can help do so by leveraging technology that Google does to assess, that uses to assess and score your content as well. So Kim, I think this one's for you on a question for the group.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just fielding and looking at all of these questions. Okay, let me get to the poll here. So question is, are you interested in learning more about our internal tools and what they say about your site? I'll be launching the poll shortly, but Dan, can you give us a little bit more insight about what an audit would look like?
Yeah, so generally an audit for our team would be the process of going through and creating a vector embedding that represents the meaning of every page on your site, and then creating that visual tool that you saw previously. It breaks all the detail down, provides distance and recommendations on what content can exist for you. And I see there's questions in there that's like, hey, from Eric saying like, hey, we want like to make sure that content is original and unique. And that is true that it can be helpful in doing so. And we have tested saying like, hey, can we create new original content and get that added into AI overviews? And the answer is yes, if there's enough consensus or if the content that you're creating is semantically similar enough to the AI overview question. So you can create new ideas and concepts and get that included in results. An example of this is we have a free software Chrome extension called Ngrams by Go Fish. Helps you break down the Ngram analysis to identify internal linking opportunities, and queries that were generating like internal linking opportunities with Ngrams or similar type queries were generating AI overviews. Our content was not included in that at first. And then we made some adjustments to our content and aligned it. And suddenly AI overviews started pulling in that new additional information. The page was ranking well. It was also semantically aligning, and we were getting new additional information being included, not just what was generated in the past. So there is a difference, and there's patents that Google has related to aligning with consensus. There's also tools and information that's helpful for establishing information gain, which is important, and providing unique value to your customers. So we're not saying write a one-to-one alignment with what everything is in AI overviews, but it could identify that you don't have on your content or on your website details or ideas that's representative of a question people have. And there's a gap in that information. So filling that gap the way that your business would fill it is helpful.
Thanks, Dan. I want to let this poll sit just for maybe another 30 seconds. So I think it's a good time to answer a couple of questions. Eric asks, is AI overview content sourced only from websites, or might the LLM source from Google business profiles or other directory listings?
That's a good question. And I think we'll probably have to do some additional research. I don't think there's anything that's limiting them from pulling from other sources. So far, majority of the information we're seeing is sourced from other websites. Most of the information besides in, I guess, biggest Google business profile that you enter yourself is sourced from there, but they could include other information like from Google Merchant Center's feed data. They could pull that information as well. I don't think there's anything limiting Google from pulling from other sources that they have, including, YouTube transcripts. I believe that they train their models on all those. But majority of the content is currently coming from websites.
Right. And then Eric had another pretty interesting question. Can our brand be featured in an AI overview answer, or does including our brand in an answer minimize our ability to show in an AI overview?
No, your brand can be included if your brand is most relevant. So that example I gave previously of the AI overview response, basically the summary said is tools like Screaming Frog and Go Fish's Ngram Chrome extension. So you can have your brand be included with strong semantic relevance and providing the solutions that people are looking for. And I'm sure that their AI overviews kind of retrieval engine will get smarter and identifying those brands that people are looking for most. So it can pull in those other details in brand information. Yes.
And one more. I love this question from Kieran. Should we actually want to be trying to get into AIOs? We've noticed that our clients whose sites are being included in AIOs are nosediving in terms of actual clicks to their site. People are reading the AIOs and not following through to check the sources. Oh, we lost Dan. Oh, he's back.
I'm here. Sorry. So some of that is, I think, related to a different buyer's journey than what we're traditionally used to. And often I think there's a number of businesses, HubSpot, I think is one that people have referenced previously, where it's like, hey, their traffic is tanking. They're not showing up in AI platforms or overviews or other areas, yet their business is booming. And we can see that because of their public traded, exposure and information. So the buyer's journey is changing. People might be seeking top of funnel information, from AI overviews before they're ready to buy and get into specific details. This chart Kalina showed earlier is like informational queries, so top of funnel queries. AI overviews is there the most. Once we get more down to our transactional type intent queries, they're not being shown as much. But I do think that your brand, your messaging, you being included as a source, everything that we know about branding and marketing is the more that you're included and shown, the higher trust and likelihood that you'll be picked once they get ready to buy. So I do believe that included in AI overviews is going to be a net win for you over the long run.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. We can move on.
All right. So we're going to shift gears. We talked a lot about Google's AI overviews. We're going to shift to ChatGPT and why AI search goes beyond Google. So thinking about ChatGPT, where it's different than Google is one of the things that's different is that it primarily uses either its own search technology or one borrowed from its good friend Microsoft. Adam Fry, who is the leads ChatGPT's search functionality for OpenAI, has said that the search functionality was built with a mix of search technologies, including Microsoft Bing, and we know that they leverage that technology to help them solve answers. And we do know from recent announcements that they're interested in pulling in from Google Chrome user data and other experiences. But with the fact that they leverage Bing for a lot of their search functionality, we think that it has an elevated role in the past, and that ChatGPT now generates more monthly or more weekly users than Bing does on its own. But so it does make it a little bit more important. So with Bing being more important, what does that mean? So usually what we're telling clients that are interested in showing up more in ChatGPT search results, the first step to do is dust off that old Bing Webmaster Tools, make sure that you're comfortable with it, that you can see the data and understand where you're appearing in search results, how Bing is, correlating information and keywords from your content, and that everything is aligning. It is difficult to optimize content for multiple different platforms as their algorithms are different, but at least it can be an information source to help you understand, how you're appearing and for what queries and what's happening. So if you're not already using Bing Webmaster Tools, that is some of the work that we're doing with our customers to help them appear more in ChatGPT. It is an SEO function, but it can definitely help lay that foundation. The next thing that we would recommend is to set up and utilize Index Now. So Index Now is a technology that Microsoft Bing and many other search engines, Yandex and others, from Ahrefs, leverage Index Now. Google does not, but our assumption and understanding is it's a technology that we would expect more search engines and potentially ChatGPT directly in the future. And so setting up Index Now through Bing Webmaster Tool and through your website platform essentially allows that anytime you create or make a change on your website, that information gets pushed to the search engine instead of them having to crawl and find the changes. And so it's something to allow for kind of almost immediate changes that you make on your website to be available for ChatGPT and other AI search bots to be able to source and serve that information to its customers. So combined with Bing and ChatGPT, you can really get information in index now to ChatGPT and other language models moving forward. So that's a tactic that you can leverage now to increase your exposure. Like we mentioned previously, the semantic relevance that we talked about in our Chrome extension that we leverage to kind of score content on your site, it is also the same retrieval augmented generation technology that ChatGPT leverages with their search service to find the specific passages on your site and on pages on your website that provide the answers to customers that they're looking for. So it is the same technology that works for one, should help us understand what content is a good match for all language models. And we've leveraged it to help improve our exposure in ChatGPT as well. And some of the questions are like, well, can you really influence ChatGPT? And so this example is a screenshot from Chris Long on our team. Basically is we've gone through a number of processes of saying is, hey, if we see what kind of content ChatGPT is generating about our business, can we make it so that it outputs something different? Can we change that? Can we increase the rate that we're being included in references? And this example is just one. At the top in the gray, you can see is that we were not having any content that was referenced to notable clients, where competitors that were being listed for top digital PR agencies were having some of those notable clients included. So we updated our content, made some adjustments to it. ChatGPT was able to see that information when we did it by following the semantic relevance and content structure that we talked about previously, and started grabbing and pulling that information in. So going to shift things over and hand it back over to Kim and Kalina.
All right, so I'll launch our poll. Are you using digital PR as part of your current AI optimization strategy or as part of your current strategy? I'll give everyone about a minute to answer. Kalina, when you see incoming clients, and their PR strategy, is this something that they're typically using?
Yeah, so digital PR is a strategy that obviously we use for building links, which is critical from an SEO perspective, but it's also really impactful for AI visibility in a few different ways. So excited to talk about that and talk about all of the other impacts beyond what people might naturally think of when they think of digital PR.
Right. And it looks like not everyone is currently engaging in a digital PR strategy. Some are prioritizing link building, but don't track its impact on AI visibility. And then some, yeah, we regularly earn placements and citations that enhance our AI visibility. Great. So I think Kalina will have something for each group, everyone who falls into each of those buckets. And I'll just share the results quickly and we can move into your content, Kalina.
Yeah, for sure. So wanted to start off with some insight into what people think about the impact of link building and AI. So our recent BuzzStream report found that 2 out of every 3 think that link building will either become much more or somewhat more important over the next 2 years thanks to AI. Only 1% say that link building will not be important. So you don't have to take it from me. Link building is definitely an important strategy as we head into this changing search landscape. So why is that the case? Getting mentioned in major media outlets is always going to increase your visibility in some capacity, but now there's this concept of associating your brand with core products and services. So for instance, if we Go Fish were to get coverage in a news site, they might say something like, Go Fish, a digital marketing agency, said XYZ. And that phrase, digital marketing agency, helps link the concept of who we are with what we do. And then the second piece of this, which we'll come back to, is that features in blogs and reports increase the likelihood of appearing as a source in AI responses through providing valuable information to the internet. So a little bit more on keyword co-citations. Essentially, the concept is helping AI understand what you do and when your users might need to find you. So for instance, if somebody is then searching for the best digital marketing agency, and we've already gotten a lot of media coverage with that associated phrase, we've already kind of put it out there and established that we are a digital marketing agency, it increases the likelihood of getting pulled into AI responses because we've built that credibility and also the link between who we are and what we do. And it's not just us saying that we're a digital marketing agency, but now it's a bunch of other media publications with well-established credibility and authority also perpetuating that. So an example of this is a travel rewards company that we work with called Upgraded Points. We do a lot of data studies and get them a lot of media coverage. You can see some examples here. And you can see that in these examples, the whole story is not about Upgraded Points and how it's a travel rewards website. It's about something entirely different. But in each of these pieces of coverage, there are different phrases that the journalists use to explain what Upgraded Points is, why they have the authority to be releasing data on these various topics. And again, these are coming from highly authoritative websites relevant in the industry that are pushing this narrative of Upgraded Points being a travel and credit cards point resource or a perks maximizing site, insider tips for travelers, travel and finance experts, all of these various phrases that are really important to explaining what Upgraded Points actually is. So in action, then you can see if somebody is going to ChatGPT and asking, what are the best travel rewards websites? There's already all of that information out there that Upgraded Points is a travel rewards website. So it boosts the likelihood of Upgraded Points coming up in these search results. And not just on their own site, they're saying this, but also on these media publications. The second big piece to this is that OpenAI has partnerships with a lot of different media outlets. We mentioned this at the top of the call that Washington Post just signed a contract with OpenAI, but there are a ton of others like this list that appears on the screen and a lot more that aren't featured here. Groups like Condé Nast, Hearst, Axios, Time, Vox, the list goes on. And a lot of those groups include a lot of littler outlets within that that have a lot of authority and a strong reputation. So if you're being talked about in these publications, it increases the odds that ChatGPT will reference your brand or site when they're serving responses to users. These contracts are typically around accessing information and using them as a source in responses. So obviously, it's really great to get your brand featured in all of these different websites. So a little bit of this in action. Again, like I said, this gives you more opportunity to be featured as a citation. Best case scenario is that your own website, like you can see here, Upgraded Points is featured as a citation. But if your brand is mentioned in other major media outlets, it also increases visibility through association. So in this example, Upgraded Points is pulled out as a citation, but then there's also a lot of other media outlets that also talk about Upgraded Points. So there's even more opportunities to expand visibility and expand your potential audience and potential people that know about your brand and what your services are.
Kalina, I just want to interrupt quickly. Sorry, there are two interesting questions. So, do the articles have to be featured or front and center? Is it okay if they're buried in the site? So essentially, Karen is asking if someone features a link from your website, does it matter where the link appears on their website?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely great if it's featured front and center. That's best case scenario, but it's still okay if it's mentioned somewhere throughout the page. Like I said, the whole entire article doesn't need to be about your brand or your service or your products in order for it to be impactful. It's really just about linking together that phrase. We know that Google places more value on links that are higher up, so it's great if you can get your links in the top in the first couple of paragraphs, but it's not make or break if your links are towards the bottom. It's still really impactful to get those links in a major media publication.
And then, we keep getting a couple of questions about geography. Dan, I think this might be a question for you as well. If the publications, and Kalina, this is you, if the publications are European sources, will they show up in ChatGPT searches in the US? Does geography matter?
Yeah, Dan, you might know better than I do.
So that's a little bit of a information question for just the way that the European Union laws, and I would love to say that I'm an expert on their news publications. I know that it probably will impact for Google AI overviews. For ChatGPT, I think that's still a question of how much that product is being able to be used inside the different EU countries. So that might be, the answer is, I think, still to be figured out. I know it's an evolving product there. And so we'll learn more and share as we do.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to get into some best practices for digital PR in an AI-driven world, there's a lot that kind of goes into a digital PR campaign. It's not as easy as just saying, I want a link from this website and then you get it. But three main tips that we can boil down. The first one, and I would say one of the most important, is coming up with a strong concept that's tangentially related to your brand. So something that's related to, but not necessarily about your products or services. This allows you to differentiate from your brand. It allows you to lean into newsworthiness, timeliness, and you're less likely to come off as an advertisement. Journalists can get paid a lot of money for writing things like advertorials or sponsored posts, so they don't want to do anything that's going to come off as an advertisement. You really want to separate whatever content you're producing from the brand and service and products that you're offering. The second main thing right here is taking a data-driven approach. Again, it's all about journalists here. So you want to think about how you're going to provide value to journalists. And typically you can do that through creating some kind of data set and providing it to them to write a story about. You have to think about ways that you're going to get the journalists to not just write a story about it, but then write a story about it, mention you, and link back to you. So that could be something like scraping a publicly available data source like the census and pulling out key insights and pitching that to a journalist. Or it could be something like drafting a unique survey where you have a unique access to a data set that nobody else has access to, and then you pitch that out to a journalist. It can look like a lot of different things, but data-driven approaches are a really great way to stand out in journalist inboxes. And then finally, basic PR tactics that people probably already know a lot about. So personalized outreach, generating relationships with journalists, all of that definitely applies to digital PR. You're just kind of thinking about it in a different lens of creating different types of content that's specifically tailored for online visibility. And then finally, a case study here. So this is a campaign that we did for Upgraded Points, which I mentioned earlier. This is the airports with the most TSA complaints. So we analyzed 10 years of TSA complaint data and then found the most common complaints overall, which airports had the highest percentage of common complaints, and then which airports have seen the most recent complaints. So little changes in over time. This one earned 57 links with an average DR of 64. So things like New York Post, Time Out, Thrillist, Mental Floss, Travel and Leisure, Men's Journal, a bunch of Fox affiliates, and a ton of others. So again, this gives us a lot of opportunity to be featured in all of these major media publications, but then there's a lot of supplemental benefits, like I mentioned, of associating your brand as an authority in the industry, getting high quality backlinks, and increasing the likelihood of appearing in AI results, along with the slew of other benefits that come along with earning backlinks in media outlets. Kimberly, I'll take
All
it
right.
back.
Yeah, so I'm going to launch the last poll. Question is, are you interested in a sample idea for a digital PR campaign? I'll leave this poll up for the remainder of the webinar, so Kalina, we won't interrupt you anymore. So feel free to answer in the last 12 minutes.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're going to pass it back to Dan to wrap things up on traditional PR.
Yeah, thanks, Kalina. Like digital PR, traditional PR is important for large language models, and we'll kind of talk about this idea is that the old or previous model of doing business is that if you could appear in Google search results and drive people to your website, they may not look a lot about your business in other areas. They may not want to understand, besides what you tell them your business is important to or doing or what is said about you, as much as they will now through language models. And part of that is because natural language models are trying to provide additional value to customers or to users that they may not have gotten from a traditional search experience. It's much more conversational with additional insight and information. And so with that, traditional PR becomes important. To help control and have an idea of what's said about you online, it's important that there is things said about you. So large language models like ChatGPT and Google AI overviews use a process called grounding to make sure that their language model isn't just hallucinating and making things up. And to do that, they go out and look to other sources. So if someone asks about a particular brand or a particular business or a particular product, or if they are a language model is just trying to provide additional information to a user about a topic that you're discussing that's related to your brand, it's going to go out and going to look to third-party data sources and information to understand what is said about your business. And that's where traditional PR comes in. It can be extremely important that there's lots of content out there that talks about what your business does, how it goes about doing it, what's important to you, what your employees and your team members and your customers are doing, what your customers find value in the service that you provide. And where digital PR is helping to get co-citations at scale and in volume, it's still important to have traditional PR that talks about what it is you offer. The more content that's more recent, that's more relevant, the more likely that language models will use that information to help provide answers about your specific business and so on. And so with that, we're showing the slide again, kind of places that OpenAI media outlets partner. There's 120 different publications that they have, including the Washington Post now and Associated Press. PR agencies are great at getting business featured, so full articles written about you in these type of publications. And so when we work with the team at Agital for this is the type of thing that we're doing. What can we get to help you get included in TechCrunch or some of these other publications? Because we want to make sure that your business has a say about what is viewed or described about it online. And PR through traditional PR efforts can help that process. So it's really about explaining and understanding what's unique and beneficial about your business, how you go about doing things, and talking to and building relationships with journalists so that they are willing to share that with their customers and audience. And then finally, this is another side of traditional PR that kind of rolls over into what we describe as online reputation management or reputation management. Not only is those publications going to be used, but review sites are also going to be referenced. In this screenshot example, just asking about Go Fish Digital's PR services, it talks about our strengths, and it also grabbed and pulled in client references from a review site, Clutch, right? So it's one of those things that it's important that you have a team that's thinking about what is the overall message that's being said about our business, how are publications writing and talking about us, and what are online reviews saying about us, because those things are all going to be important and being pulled into the language models moving forward. And so at Go Fish and at Agital, we provide services to customers to help them have more control over what is said about their business and organization online, and how to manage the reviews that are being left on other publications. And so that's generally, I know we're coming up and going to open up for a few question and answers, but wanted to share kind of the key takeaways for today. Generally is that Google AI overviews and ChatGPT are changing search. That's clear is that search behavior is changing, search layouts are changing. The world that we lived in is gone, and it's evolving to an answer engine type platform and service. We want you guys to know that you guys have control over what's happening and how your brand is included. And that can be done through semantic similarity tools like the ones that we create, through properly structuring your content, through leveraging tools that are free and available to you, like Bing's webmaster tools, and connecting your website to index now. And that by doing so, you can increase and have more control over what is said about you in AI overviews and ChatGPT. That digital PR can help you with traditional SEO services, but also increase the likelihood that future large language models include you as a response to prompts that are relevant to your business and organization. And that traditional PR is still important in this changing world. It helps you kind of mold and craft and put out what's being said about your business online. So things are changing. The great news is there's a lot of things that we can do about it to have a say. We don't have to stand by idle. And that we believe that the people that win this effort are going to be the ones that win in this new AI world. That kind of sitting back and waiting and not doing anything is not going to be a response that's good for your business or your organization, and trying to be proactive as Google, ChatGPT, and other landscape changes. All right, and I think we have a few minutes for Q&A. I know we've been answering some throughout time, but Kim, I don't know if there's specific ones that have popped up that you think we should talk about.
Yep, there's a couple, and I just want to call out, we dropped a link to our LinkedIn and also to our LinkedIn newsletter, which publishes monthly. So We publish a lot of insights from Dan and Dan's LinkedIn. You could also follow Dan and Kalina on LinkedIn. So I'd encourage you to click and follow those links and pieces of content. One interesting question that popped up, let me just find it quickly, from Emily. Can ChatGPT and other LLMs crawl videos, Reels, YouTube, TikTok, etc., or only live text on the website?
So right now, I don't think that they crawl those with their search engine, but they do source that information for training their language model. There's been some controversy about OpenAI, for example. They have a technology that they take audio and video and convert it to text, to then train their model with. And they have multimodal models for video and images as well. So it's not a real-time live search, but it is something that's going to eventually get into their models as they continue to grab new content from the web to train it on things like video, image generation, and they have technologies to just pull the audio and convert it to text on transcribing it way better than what was available just a few years ago. So in summary, no, but yes, eventually it will be part of their models in what they're doing, but not in real time as much as might have been in other search engine type technology.
Okay, great. I also see a lot of questions coming in about slides. We will absolutely be sending slides and a recording of this webinar after the webinar concludes. There's another question, Dan. I'm seeing a lot of this, but I want to kind of meld it together for you. So people are asking about optimizing for different LLMs, and I think it's important for them to understand optimization in general versus trying to target a specific LLM. Can you elaborate on that?
So some of the technologies are kind of core across all language models. So they all are using retrieval augmented generation to grab and find what pieces of information and context. Most all of them use that through a technology that Google initially invented with BERT, which allows them to break down passages, at the passage level, so the sentence level essentially, into groups of text, and they convert that to a number which represents the meaning. And they all use technology to find content through that. So what that ties back to is that semantic similarity. So if you're improving semantic relevance to potential queries on the content on your website, you're likely to see an increase across all language models, right? That's just the way that they do it. They each use slightly different text embedding models, so it's hard to score one content for all of them. But generally, if you're moving in the right direction, that will improve it. If you have unlimited dollars, then you can definitely try and optimized for all language models. Generally, if you're more narrowed and focused, we'd recommend AI overviews because that still does get the most of content, and ChatGPT because that is growing faster than any platform has ever grown in history. And 800 million users is larger than Twitter. And it's, we're getting close to 1/7 or 1/8 of the world's population that will be using it every week. And so we think that there's worth investment in that platform too.
Thanks, Dan. It looks like we have time for maybe one more question. This is a bit of an older question. If you are developing content that answers customer questions in detail and provide a TLDR and human-based content, will this help or set your methodology for more success? So essentially, if you are, I think, developing content that answers customer questions, but then is also written in short form that sounds more human, does that increase your chances of following up, showing up in AI overviews?
Generally, I think that both humans and AI like those short snippets at the beginning. So the key takeaways of articles, years ago, the average attention span for a page is you had about 8 seconds to convince someone to stay on the page before they decided they're going to keep scrolling or bounce. And so key takeaways is your kind of initial hook to try and keep them and say there's more detail. And the content further down can go much more in depth and detail. But I do think that as long as that content is structured and helpful, it's good for both people and language models to help understand what the rest of the content page is about.
Thank you so much, Dan and Kalina. This was an awesome information-filled webinar. I just want to remind everyone to, again, click through on those links for our LinkedIn and also our LinkedIn newsletter. You will absolutely be getting a copy of the slides and of the recording. I just want to let you know quickly of an upcoming webinar. It's called Recession Proof Your Google Ads, five mistakes that cost you. It's on May 7th at 2 p.m. You can register and explore more sessions at agital.com/insights/webinars. Again, thank you to everyone who attended. An amazing job, Kalina and Dan. So thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Okay.
Kim.
Thank you.